Nyad is a brand new film that's going to be coming to Netflix on November 3rd and having a limited theatrical run starting on October 20th. I got to check it out just a little bit early, so here's my review. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Nyad. Directed by Jimmy Chin and Elizabeth Chai Vasarhelyi, this film was written by Julia Cox based on the novel written about this story by Diana Nyad herself, and stars people like Annette, Jodie Foster, Rhys, Ifans, Luke Cosgrove, and many more. And before we get too far into this, I'd like to say a big thanks to those very kind folks over at Netflix for inviting me over to my second press screening for them in just a few weeks. Just a few weeks ago, I checked out Fair Play for them, and today we're checking out the new biopic that's coming out on their platform on November 3rd and then having a limited theatrical release on October 20th called Nyad that focuses on Diana Nyad. This is a woman I had actually never heard about, and I'm actually quite surprised because as the credits were rolling, as most biopics do, there was tons of footage of the actual individuals that this movie is based on, and some clips from various pop culture things like SNL and Dancing with the Stars that have featured bits or moments with this woman, and I was kind of ashamed that I hadn't heard of this woman up to this point. So Diana Nyad, for anybody who is not familiar, is a swimmer who was very well known back in the 80s for actually going out and doing these huge long-term swims, these long-range swims for tons and tons of hours, going for miles and miles and miles on her own. Of course, with the assistance of a team that would be in boats around her, but she would be free swimming on her own. And yeah, I had never heard about this woman, like I said. And this movie right here, what we're watching, is actually about her coming back 30 years later to make an attempt at something that she failed at when she was 28 years old, and now in her early 60s, back in 2013, was able to accomplish this. And that goal was to swim from Cuba to Key West, from Cuba to the very tip, very bottom parts of Florida, and it was never done by anybody else. Of course, a grueling, just multi-day swim that she would have to attempt that was going to completely test her mental fortitude and her physical fortitude. And yeah, I'm happy to say I really enjoyed this film. Again, I had no idea who Diana Nyad was when I went into this, so this was a movie that was giving me all the information I needed to know on her within the runtime of this film, while also getting me to get invested in it as a movie in and of itself, get invested in Diana Nyad's journey here and her mental drive to make this happen. This is a movie right out of the gate that I can say is inspiring in a lot of ways. If you're an athlete and you just know what it is to just have this goal that you've just been driven to get to, and you just can't let the naysayers get you down, and you just are willing to put yourself through any physical pain and just go through absolutely anything you can to achieve your goal, then this movie is definitely something you can relate to. But outside of that, I found that this film is also something that can be related to by tons of people. If you have a dream, if you have a goal, if you're struggling with even something like aging, where you feel maybe you've kind of lost touch with time, maybe you're older now, you can't necessarily go out for those dreams that you want to do, maybe aging in general is something that weighs on your heart, I think that this movie can be inspiring in so many different ways, because Diana Nyad, throughout the course of this film, is not only going for this dream that she's always wanted in her life, but she's also going for it in her early 60s, something that was impossible for her to do when she was 28. She just kept on, trial and error, and was able to achieve it literally decades later, when in a time where most people would say she definitely could not have done it because of her age, because of just how dangerous it was, and because of the fact that she waited so much time in between the last attempt and when she's doing it now. And on top of that, this film not only has that great narrative about not giving up and not letting age be a factor in all of it, but it also really focuses on the idea that you can't do it alone. Diana Nyad was able to achieve this, of course, because of her own personal strength and drive, but also because of the team she had around her, most notably a woman named Bonnie Stoll, who in this film is played by Jodie Foster. Diana Nyad in this film is played by Annette, and I think the two of them are absolutely phenomenal in these roles. And especially I felt that way as I was watching the footage of the real individuals as the credits were rolling at the end, where I was just like, wow, yeah, this was really good casting here for these two individuals, these two women, two best friends that had known each other for multiple decades, who are now working together to achieve one of their goals. And it becomes this beautiful thing where Diana Nyad's goal becomes everybody else's goal. And I just found that was a really uplifting and inspiring thing. Again, it's a tale of pushing through your own mental fortitude, your own physical fortitude, not letting age hold you back from chasing a dream, but also recognizing how you got to do it as a team, how that support system is important in everything and anything that you do, and that most people who do achieve these big, just over the top feats that one individual is able to pull off, when you look around them, there's usually a great support team that was able to make them get to that point. It's absolutely crucial, and this film definitely highlights that. So that's the whole premise of this movie. It's straightforward. I knew that was the idea going in, but I didn't know much more about this woman, and this film gave me those details. Now the question is, what did I think about the film on an overall level? Well, as I said before, I enjoyed it. I found it to be inspiring in a lot of ways, very well performed, and overall I thought it was a very well shot film that also utilized a really strong musical score given by Alexandre Desplat, who usually gives pretty fantastic scores. Beyond that, if I had to lean into any gripes I had on this movie, I would say that there's a lot to get into this movie narratively that oftentimes felt either rushed or oftentimes didn't feel like it had a place in the story. The first act of the movie is just jam-packed with, okay, we need to get this person, we need to get that person, we got to get this expert, we got to get that person, you got to get the medic, you got to get the navigator, you got to get the shark expert, you got to get, the actual sailor, you got to get all the individuals who are going to be a part of the crew that are going to be around her in the various boats to make sure that she gets from one place to the next. And I think that sometimes in that first act, it just felt a little bit all over the place, that we were just jumping from place to place to place, beating character to character to character, and it just kind of felt like it was happening fairly quickly where there wasn't a lot of time to breathe. Once we get to the actual attempts of her trying to make this happen, it's a trial and error game, which I did really enjoy. But I can see some people who maybe struggle with slower paced films at times feeling like the film feels rather redundant from time to time because this is a trial and error film where she's attempting this feat multiple times, oftentimes to fail until she eventually, of course, achieves said goal. And I enjoyed that. I didn't mind that too much, but as I was watching it, I could tell that there's probably going to be a percentage of the audience that finds those segments of the movie to be a little bit slow and redundant, even if I still enjoyed it. Now, I mentioned before that the first act of the film hones in on kind of grabbing all these various characters that are going to be a part of this supportive team. And while I enjoyed a lot of them, and there are a couple that are specifically honed in on over the course of the film, I feel like one thing that I wish this film had done a little bit more was allow us as an audience to spend a little bit more time with some of these supporting characters who were along the entire journey with her. At a certain point, it just becomes familiar faces that you've seen there with her alongside in the entire film, but most of them don't really have very many lines of dialogue or very much really input in the overall narrative. They're just kind of there to play that role, maybe giving a scene where they kind of had to utilize their expertise to help out Diana Nyad, but oftentimes just kind of feeling like a supporting character that's just present on screen versus an actual character that's integral to the narrative. My only other real big gripe in this film would be that the film also does a lot of flashbacks over the course of the film, leaning back to Diana Nyad's past, and it's most notably leaning into a traumatic element of her young childhood as she was swimming at a very young age and was trained to be a swimmer at a very young age, and there's a traumatic event that was something that held her back in life, and I can see why they included it in the film as it is part of her story for sure. But ultimately, sometimes because the film is so focused on her actually achieving this feat of swimming from Cuba to Florida, I oftentimes felt like some of this traumatic past stuff in the flashbacks was part of her story but didn't necessarily feel as integral to the story we're being told here. And so that's my biggest gripe when it comes to the movie that we're seeing here in and of itself in terms of the story. There were some characters that just felt under fleshed out and just kind of felt like they were there, and then there was some of that stuff with the traumatic flashbacks that again I feel are integral to Diana Nyad's story but within the story that we're being told here about her trying to achieve this goal, it oftentimes felt just kind of random and out of place when we would have those flashbacks kind of appear throughout the course of the film. If I had to lean into any other negatives I have for this film, I'd just say there were a couple of moments where some of the CGI around some of the water in certain moments, as well as some of the sea creatures that Diana Nyad encounters over the course of the film, maybe wasn't the strongest. Some of the CGI wasn't the strongest in little moments, but for the most part, I found this to be an incredibly well-made film that's very well acted, very well directed, very well shot. I found that the overall performances are what gripped me in, with Jodie Foster being probably my favorite part of the film as the supportive friend, the person who just loves Diana Nyad so much and wants to help her through this entire journey. I thought that Annette Bening did an incredible job leaning into this role that oftentimes can be insufferable, which is also something I enjoyed about the film. You have this lead character who is so driven by what they want to do that they oftentimes will come across incredibly selfish and just be rather insufferable. And I think as an audience member, you feel that, but then the characters feel that as well. But there is also this endearing quality about her and her drive to achieve this goal that the characters and these individuals who were there with her in real life had to ultimately overcome to be able to kind of work with her. And they wanted to see her achieve her goals, even if she could be a pain at the ass in this sometimes. And so I think as an audience member, I felt like she was a pain in the ass at times. But as we got to the end of the film, I was rooting for her, and I started actually feeling emotional as she was coming to achieve her goal, ultimately because of the just endearing drive and nature of who she is and her passion for this goal. And I think that Annette Bening did an incredible job of relaying that, with Jodie Foster being a fantastic supporting role character there to really help push that character. I thought the two of them really played the characters super well, the two individuals very well, because again, when we get to see that footage at the very end of the film, I think that the two of them were spot on casting for the individuals you get to see in the real life footage of the people that were involved in this story. So overall, yeah, a really well made film. Again, I really liked Alexandre Desplat's musical score throughout the course of the film. I thought it added a lot of tension and a lot of whimsy at times as well. There was a beautiful nature and kind of a change within the score. I think the score is really what drives this movie, because there are moments in the film that are tense. There are moments in the film that are scary for our characters, but then there are also moments that are wondrous, and there are also moments that are exciting and uplifting. And I think that Alexandre Desplat was able to take the various tones that this film needed musically and really kind of, you know, ebb and flow with it throughout the course of the film. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Nyad. I think it's definitely a movie you guys should check out, whether you catch it in its limited theatrical screenings that are going to start again on October 20th. But also, if you end up just catching this on Netflix and that's what brought you here to the review, well, definitely let me know down below what you guys thought about the movie. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Hit that like button, comment down below, subscribe for more videos and more early Netflix reviews like this one. And I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.